Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We've arrived at the second day of WOHESC. You made it. I hope you enjoyed the dine-arounds last night and that some of you were able to go to yoga this morning. I am extremely excited about this morning's keynote speaker and honored to introduce Pandora Thomas. So, I know. Pandora Thomas is a caregiver, a designer, a teacher, a speaker, a writer, and a passionate global citizen and bona fide tree hugger. She co-founded the Black Permaculture Network in California and is a facilitator at several permaculture and ecological design schools. Pandora studied urban and environmental policy and planning with a focus on environmental justice, sustainability, built environments, and food security from Tufts University. She also completed a human rights fellowship focusing on global justice, social and environmental justice, and international education development at Columbia. Without further ado, let's welcome Pandora Thomas.
Okay. Good morning, Ooh, this is great. Good morning, everyone. How you doing? I've already met about half of you. I came around and someone was like, wow, you're the keynoter and you're coming up and introducing yourself? I was like, yeah. She was like, great. So hopefully I can meet even more of you. I also don't really do podiums very well, so you're going to get to see me this way during my talk. Again, my name is Pandora Thomas. I just want to acknowledge Social Enterprise, the organization that brought me out. They planned this conference, so I'm so honored to be here at Portland State and to be with all of you. How are you all doing this morning? Bright and early. I came all the way from the Bay Area. It's super warm there right now because of climate change, so this weather is much appreciated. And again, I hope I get to talk to any of you that I didn't chat with before, and I'm going to share a little bit of my story. So as Sarah said, I work as a teacher, a caregiver for my mother, and also an ecological designer. And my family's ancestry is African from Senegal and also Native American. I have the opportunity to do the work that I do with people from all sorts of backgrounds. And so because of that, I root my work in this concept. Has anybody ever seen this before? What is this? It's a Ghanaian symbol, and what does it mean? SANKOFA. Can you all see the word SANKOFA? It's a West African principle that means go back and fetch it. Or we must know from where we came in order to move forward. Now, as a woman of African ancestry who does the work of sustainability with communities of color, why would I ground my work in this concept? Because all of us, all of our communities have legacies of relationship with the earth, of working with the earth, observing the earth, principles and how it works. So when I'm talking to communities and I can ground it in this principle of SANKOFA, it's not so much about this future we're going to that ain't nobody seen before and we don't even know if we're going to get there. But it's actually, no, where have we come from? Where are the stories? Where are the legacies in our DNA that connect us to each other and to the environment? So I want all of you to think of your own SANKOFA. Think of either a person or a story, an ancestor, someone who's no longer living, that has inspired you to be in this room. On whose shoulders do you stand? Who taught you something, took you somewhere, that got you on this path to show up in this room today? So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes each. You're going to turn to your partner, and you're going to share that story. And again, it can either be a blood relative, someone in your bloodline, someone you read, anybody on whose shoulders you feel you stand. You're a SANKOFA. Go ahead. Okay, switch partners and let the other person share. You have about 2 more minutes. This will give you a reason to talk to these folks. How was that for folks? I can't hear anybody. I also come from the black church tradition. I told somebody in the back, You can yell, you can wave your hand, call and response. It helps that I know that you're feeling me. How was that? Okay. So if you didn't get to finish your SANKOFA, I invite you to talk with folks later. This is the story we are building. This is the movement forward. We are sustaining a legacy of life. So how do we go back and fetch those stories, grounded? If you couldn't think of a story, if you're troubled because you're like, my ancestors, they never did nothing good, blah, 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 I will, no, because certain groups of people have claimed that, but I'm like, nah. Every one of our ancestors had right relationships and wrong relationships, but relationships with the earth, if we go back far enough, or learn about even the cultures of the place we've lived. Actually, where I want to start, I want to acknowledge the SANKOFA legacy of this very land we stand on, of the First Nations who were here, have been here, and still exist. Is there anyone in this room who is a descendant of one of the nations that are indigenous to this area? Please raise your hand if there is anyone in this room. Thank you. I didn't mean to embarrass you, but it's real. We need to acknowledge on whose shoulders we all stand. I stand on this stage because of them allowing us to be here. So these are my two ancestors, my SANKOFAs, that has helped me in my journey. Who knows who the person on the left is, this guy? Anybody? Oh, wow, this Black History Month, really? Peanuts. George Washington Carver, and I just gave it away. What is he known for? Is he known for anything else? Do you ever hear him? Well, some of you sound like you've never even heard of him. But if you've heard of him, do you hear of him talked about as an environmentalist in the likes of your Rachel Carsons and your Al Gores? But environmentalists who over 100 years ago lived in the South, was the first Black student to receive his agricultural degree in the United States. And instead of just doing the type of farming that was cotton farming, and depleting the soil, he said no. He was a plant whisperer, and he said that the plant spoke to him that there was a need to regenerate the soil, the lives of the people working the land, the African Americans in the South at the time, and the economy that we were living. And how could we have an economy that was more dependent on living things instead of dead things? This is George Washington Carver. Yes, he did a lot of that with peanuts, but he also worked with a lot of other plants, especially nitrogen-fixing plants. He wanted to encourage farmers in the African-American South to start to buy their land instead of just sharecropping, which I'm going to get to a little bit more about my story. Do any of you know about this with George Washington Carver? Okay, if not, read a little bit more. Imagine when I'm speaking to communities who have felt like the environmental movement or sustainability is not theirs, and then they learn, they're like, oh, wait a minute. We've been doing this as long as we've been on the planet, but also in the South, sustainability has been spoken of in terms of how it affects humans and the soil and the economy. That's George Washington Carver. Now, who is that on the right? Anybody? Underground Railroad. I'm in Washington. Harriet Tubman. What did anybody know Harriet Tubman? Okay. Kind of gave it away. She's known for the Underground Railroad. Anybody heard of her talked about as an environmentalist or dealing with sustainability? She grew up on a farm and credited her relationship with the forest, with the backcountries, understanding the past, following the stars, what you could eat, what was poisonous, what was the wildlife, her relationship with the land for being able to lead so many people out of enslavement. Building forts, building spaces to sleep at night, and then traveling in the night so that in the day they could then get to freedom. She credits her relationship with the earth and her ancestry and connection to being able to take her people to freedom. Just imagine if we started to understand these lenses in terms of looking at people's history. And so that's just the slide for my story. That's been a lot of my journey. My family, like I said, African American, Senegalese, and Cherokee from the South. Both of my parents were raised on a sharecropping farm. Y'all know what sharecropping is? It should be changed. It should not be sharecropping. I was going to write Webster's and say, you need to get rid of that name. Because there was actually nothing about sharing done in sharecropping My mother was born on a homestead, the kind that I live in Berkeley, and all my friends are like, we want to live on a homestead and grow our own things. And when I say that to my family, like, I want to marry a farmer, they're like, why? We came from that. They were forced to live that way in the South as sharecroppers, where everything they grew, everything they made, they had to give to the landowner and then buy it back. So they had to have side hustles. So for them, that relationship with the land was actually torn. That's actually the roots of the sharecropping that George Washington Carver was trying to heal. African Americans knowing how to work the land, but having this rift. So my family was part of the North American migration to Pennsylvania. My mother and father both moved to a small town, and even though my mother especially had that legacy, she still kept her connection to the earth. I was raised in Farrell, Pennsylvania, fishing, growing plants, just with this relationship to the earth. She didn't call herself an environmentalist or say, you're going to be an environmentalist, speaking on stages when you grew up in Pandora. But that ethic of caring for the earth, having right relationship, stuck with her. And to this day, when you ask her, she still credits those early memories of having relationships with the land. So I was blessed to actually be able to go back and fetch those stories and ask her about that. But growing up in my small steel mill town, when I got to school and I wanted to carry on that legacy of working for the environment, I didn't see images like George Washington Carver or Harriet Tubman that were relating to me. No one told me that this could be my future. If anything, I was kind of pushed from it and told that, you know, maybe I should just be a teacher or go into whatever other thing. It was like 30 years ago, just aging myself. So that was my experience, knowing my path was about sustainability and the environment, but not always having reflections. Because not only did I care about the earth, but I was committed to justice. Why? Because I was starting to see the injustice in my community. Fast forward to my college years, I went to Youngstown State University, and I was one of those students that joined every club. Anybody in here? I was in the Organization for Women's Equality, the Student Environmental Action Coalition, the African American Student Union. That was little me all the time in all those organizations. I was at all those organizations, but do you think any of those organizations spoke to each other? In fact, the African American students were like Pandora. They are building a prison across the street that's projected to house more African American men than will graduate from this university. Why are you over there with them people talking about owls and recycling? And then the students in the environmental organization were saying stupid things like, why don't black people care about the environment, Pandora? So if you've ever said that, don't say that again. And in my mind, I'm like, we do care about, our bodies are the environment. Everybody cares about the environment. But it was both groups. And then the Organization for Women's Equality, we were saying the earth is called she, and it's women's bodies are treated like the earth. But there was no connection. But they all connected in me. Does anybody feel that? It's like I was studying all these things and looking for ways to connect the dots. And that's when I started to realize I can't really study that. I actually have to create this. How can my life be about creating opportunities for people to bring their full selves, bring what they've dealt with, bring their histories, bring their assets, but also have a place for them to intersect and collaborate and come together? Y'all feel that? Has anybody else wanted that? Not to be so siloed and you gotta be the woman here and then the black person. You know, it's like, no, we're whole beings. How do we start to weave these issues together, acknowledge the different things we're dealing with, but also create a space where they can come together through the programs? So I'm gonna share a little bit of the projects that I've been a part of that have taken the attempt, that I've tried to attempt with others to actually foster this that I'm explaining. The first example is a video I'm gonna show you of Idrina Black, and how we tried to use hip-hop, because I'm also part of the hip-hop generation, as a tool to engage 18 to 24-year-olds in San Francisco, the Bay Area, around going green or sustainability. Hit it, Sierra.
This is my grandma when she was young. Back in the day, she was a fox. I appreciate my grandmother for all the knowledge she put in me. All the stuff that she's ever told me. Like, when she always told me I could do anything I wanted to do, be anything I wanted to be, everything positive came from her. What makes me want to work in the community or better other people is because you don't really have too many people that do that in our neighborhood. To me, I do it because I feel like I didn't have people that stepped up to, introduce me to certain things in Hunters Point.
My name is Adrena Black. I'm 21 years old. Well, I work for Grind for the Green, which is a youth-led organization. We put different events on for kids to try to get into the green movement. We basically had kids step outside of their box and rap about going green. We had a concert that was ran by the solar power, just meaning like the wind and the sun. One of my trainings, we looked at different like little slideshows about what's going on in our communities, or like this period, like how they show the polar bears not having enough ice, or the toxic triangle from Richmond to Frisco to Oakland. We have farmers markets instead of going to the corner stores all the time that we have in the hood. I knew that people in my hood had like diabetes and stuff, but I didn't know it's from the stuff that we ate, the noodles, the chips, and the Kool-Aid and stuff, and not eat healthy. So just finding other ways to, eat healthier and get with the movement.
Environmental wise, there's a lot of asthma, diabetes, and cancer just because of the naval shipyard and the things we put in our bodies. Me, myself, and my grandma and sisters, we have a lot of high asthma rates.
It's not surprising that our children have asthma. I never had asthma until I moved over here. That's why I know it is environmental.
My grandma has asthma really, really bad, and to see her like struggling to breathe sometimes, to walk up and down the stairs, or like short distances, like it kills me a little bit because it really holds her back from things that she want to do. Like when she was younger, back in the day, she loved to walk.
Then all of a sudden, it's like, did you know that in the Bayview area, children are born with asthma, there is cancer, there is this. Yeah, we knew. Did you know how long it's been here?
So that really opened my eyes and made me aware of the things that I put in my body or the air that I'm breathing.
Everybody else is going green, but it's taking us a little bit longer too because, our people's, lightweight kind of lacking on it.
To me, going green is taking care of your body as well as your neighborhood. I'm not so green myself, but I try. So just for me trying, and if somebody else sees me trying, then I will hope it'll make them want to try and be better or do better.
That's Adrena. Y'all feel Adrena? Anybody relate to Adrena's story? Raise your hand if you can relate to Adrena or something that she said in that video. Yeah. Because even though she was talking about Baby Hunters Point, African American community, so many people feel that way. Like, I'm not doing enough. But it's like, how do we start with where we're at? How do we start with what our communities are doing? You heard Adrena's grandmother, too, say, we know, we living through it. We don't necessarily need people to come and tell us. We need people to support us, meet us where we're at. So that was Adrena's story. And I want to talk a little bit now about some of the considerations, because that was a project where we partnered with an Institute of Higher Learning, San Francisco State. None of the students that were a part of that program were SF students already, but they hosted this program to help us reach a larger audience focused on these issues. So I use the acronym MAGIC just because it helps me remember what I want to say, but also it's kind of cute. You could use it to remember if any of what I'm about to say would help you. This first idea is messaging and framing. How are we messaging and framing and talking about sustainability these days? This is from 2010. We called it Fresh Fest. Why? The younger people are going to be like, y'all use the word, that's not cool anymore. Back in 2010, fresh was a cool word. They came up with it. I was like already too old to really know. But they were like, let's call it Fresh Fest. Oh, and food is fresh. We're going to be, everybody was fresh. And we also said it was the largest youth-led eco-music festival in the nation. Was it? We don't know, but we said it. And people were convinced. They were like, we are the largest, And so again, we had to message it for a way to speak to the young people we was trying to reach. We had different rap stars come, Talib Kweli, Phife Dawg from A Tribe Called Quest. I don't know if any of y'all know any of these. Are actually 90s bands. Yeah, before he died, before he passed away. They didn't really know what to say, so we gave them a script. But we used people that were relevant, were saying kind of shenanigan messages to young people, and we just brought them into our process. But again, how are we making it relevant? How are we framing these issues? Like, there's a big kerfluffle because a lot of folks in, like, the Black Lives Matter movement are like, the environmental folks are not including Black Lives Matter. And then the environmental folks are like, yeah, but you're not focusing, so it's like we're not speaking to people and meeting them where they're at and then trying to understand and translate. And I think universities are full of a bunch of translators. How can we start to understand how we're framing this I thought this was going to be more administrators. I heard there's like 70% students here. Is that true? So I'm like, yay, because I thought I was going to be talking to like the other people, but I'm talking to everybody. So how can we frame this in our classrooms, in the campus? Asking people, what's important to you? How do we talk about these things in more ways? How can we work with our students and communities to create relevant messaging? Like, what are people talking about now? And then how can we continue to meet people where they're at? Not expecting them, like Adrina said, to have to go like people care, are concerned. Raise your hand if you have someone in your families with diabetes right now, with asthma. Look at this room. Wellness, health, that is also a great way to enter the sustainability conversation. A lot of people get that. They might not get sea level rise, we're all going to die, we're doomed. But do you want to understand better how to avoid asthma with what you eat or with how we're, Oh, and I want to give it up for PS, whatever that organization is. What's it called? PSUE. That organization is the bomb. Or I shouldn't say the bomb. Awesome. So again, I think there's plenty of potential to start messaging and framing these issues from feedback from the communities that we're working with to make it more relevant. People will show up. No one would have showed up if we called it the Sustainability Day. The Fresh Fest, all the young people showed up. We couldn't feed enough of them. And the second idea is this idea of asset-based approach. Harvesting expertise of students or anyone's lived experience. No community, no group does not know anything. We have to start with the idea that every group has assets. So this is an image. I don't know if any of you know who Donna Ogle is. She is an educator who created something called the KWL chart. I was also a kindergarten teacher, and I got this from her then. The KWL chart is a way that you introduce a story in like a kid's class where you're trying to help the students know they might know a little bit something about the book by just looking at the cover. So you ask them, what do you know about this book? What do you want to know, and what did you learn? That's one approach. So I kind of changed that around because everybody actually right now is experiencing climate change, experiencing all these issues. So how do we start with an asset-based approach? I'm sure many of you do this. Instead of just downloading information, we even just did it here where you all started by sharing your SANKOFA. How do we start with an asset-based? We used 4 pieces of butcher paper. What is climate change? How is it impacting your community? And I told them, I don't know is a valid. If you don't know, still write that. And then come back around and read what your friends are saying. What can we do about it, and what more do you want to know? So the basic point of this idea of the gallery walk, that's what I call it, is how do we create an environment where people bring their assets to this conversation around sustainability? So if I could do it in this room, there'd be pieces of butcher paper up, we'd all go around, and we'd share what it is we know about whatever is the subject. Because so many times people feel disempowered about these issues, so it's our opportunity to let people start to even share their experiences. And even when I ask them, what is the greenhouse effect, and most of their answers are wrong, I'm not like, that's wrong. But I read what they say, and then I just do a PowerPoint based on what actually is greenhouse effect. But a lot of my students are able to show up to the conversation because they feel heard and seen. Is there any educators in the room who can feel me or who've done this kind of, because again, you aren't doing the, I can't tell if you're feeling me, so I'm just asking. I saw a hand in the back, people nodding. So this gallery walk, again, this is a group of teachers, all women that I taught. And this was the first night of the course, and we started the course by creating a gallery walk around what is the function of teaching. And then they got to fill it out, and we went around and started building the content based on their experiences, the assets, the information that they brought to the room. Y'all feel that? Okay. Number 3, this idea of how are we growing mentorship and fostering leadership, but especially for me intergenerationally right now. I think there's a huge potential to cross. I mean, I know the next panel is going to talk about leadership, but I care for my 78-year-old mom. She has Alzheimer's, but she's super cute and happy. But just being with a senior, I've been with her 7 years, and seeing how the world kind of treats seniors and sometimes ignores seniors. Anybody else experience that? And then seeing how also the world sometimes ignores young people. It's like there's different times in your life where you're super ignored in our society. How are we actually starting to foster mentorship across those divides? It's key. And so this is a picture of this program I worked with, these happy women, called Healthy Parks, Healthy People, the SEEDS program. It was inspired by work by a friend of mine, Dr. Nushin Razani, around park prescriptions. Anybody heard of park prescriptions? Yeah, so doctors can prescribe you, you're unhealthy, go for a walk. It's great. But it turned out in some communities, it was harder to get folks to go outside and not just do sports, but wanted people to do things where they're actually learning about the health benefits, learning about the fauna and the flora. So we were like, wait a minute, well, what's our assets? In the Bayview Hunters Point, Idrina's neighborhood, there's 14 parks. Who's in those parks? Guess who's in those parks every day? African American seniors, women, actually all kinds of seniors, but mostly these women. They were retired, a lot of them were from the South. They already spent their time in the parks. So me and Nushin were like, wait a minute, if we're trying to actually get a lot of the younger generation into the parks, it used to be you kind of listen to grandma. I don't know if that's still a thing. Why don't we support the seniors in doing what they're already doing? Nushin will teach them a little bit about the health benefits, and then we'll stipend them. They'll recruit more of the younger generation to go on these walks. So we started this SEEDS program, linked them with the naturalist, and then they started taking these walks, learning, again, harvesting the expertise of this is something they were already doing. They were already engaging. We just tapped into that resource. And again, this wasn't with an institution of higher learning, but there's a potential there. How are we thinking of ways to create access? We only had to do it once, and then these seniors are continuing to do that. They are continuing because they've already been going into the parks, but now they're thinking more and more, how are they recruiting more people? So that's another way that we were creating mentorship and leadership. And the other piece is these young people were seeing people that look like them doing something that we wanted them to do. So how are we elevating communities or leaders that also have diverse backgrounds that are taking the kind of steps, leading the environment, really give them the platform like you're doing right now so people can see their reflection doing these things. Y'all feel that? Next, integrate experiential learning. Okay, I just have to apologize for Chrissy and Liam's face. I just Facebooked, I'm not on social media, but I was like, why do you guys look so miserable? They're like, we weren't miserable, Pandora. We were really happy. It was just hot. I was like, well, I'm using your image because this idea of experiential learning, how are we not just talking about these issues, but showing and immersing students, our community, like we did with Adrina, with the solar panels and in the park. They actually learned and observed and went and saw what eco-villages look like. I don't know if you could tell, but they built their little, they got a pond, they got solar panels, a rooftop garden. They kind of added everything I taught them. They're like, it's going to have everything. And you can't see, but it's everything. But only by immersing them in them. I just didn't teach it in a class. We actually went out and they observed it. They cut some bamboo. They actually immersed themselves in it. The hands-on piece is crucial. We have to show our students and our communities what it is we're talking about in the examples, in the outdoors. The earth is calling us to her to get out there and observe her patterns. Learn about what is happening so that solutions will actually be embedded in that. Y'all feel me? This is another example where I had opportunity to work with, yes, Toyota, but they partnered with historically black colleges and universities. You know what those are, right? There aren't any up here. As you can imagine why. Not that many black people. But in the South, there's a lot of historically black colleges and universities. And so Toyota actually did a good thing. They wanted people to buy cars, but they also had leadership that wanted to inspire African-American communities to understanding the benefits of adopting a sustainable lifestyle. And so myself and my business partner were hired to help craft this, rooted in SANKOFA, and show African-Americans, again, through an experience, this is part of our legacy. Part of it also included bringing, like, famous people. That's Lance Gross. I don't know if any of you know who he is. And Tatiana Ali. Remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? That's Tatiana Ali. Again, she's an environmentalist, Trinidadian. She talked about having a garden in her backyard. So when she was up on stage, because nobody really wanted to hear from me, but they really wanted to hear from her, we got her in the door, and then we'd all go outside and immerse them in this experience. So these students would get a chance. Some of the historically black colleges, HBCUs, had greenhouses that had been shut down and had nothing happening in them. So we revamped those. We tried to support through hands-on experiential learning, not just talking about green and sustainability, but helping them experience it. And I think that's the opportunity. How are we really immersing our students and our communities in this life? And the last one is collaboration. And in order to talk about this one, I have to actually share a problem that we face, and I know you face because I've actually visited some of the prisons and jails up here, is the incarceration rate. I didn't share this, but growing up, about 90% of the men and some of the women in my family were either in prison, in and out, now in. I don't know if anyone else relates with that, but that was another thing I had to see growing up. So fast forward to me doing this work, that has been a strong point. How can I do around justice work around incarceration? And so the problem in California, this image on the left is just to show the disproportionate amount of communities of color who are incarcerated. 60% of people in jail are people of color. Are we 60% of the United States? Are we 50%? 40%? No, we're a little bit more than that. You might be surprised if you went to some other states, but we're a little bit more than that. We're about 30%. Actually, I think it's more, but that's a whole other conversation. So 60%, half the population incarcerated right now is African-American men. So in California, it's above and beyond challenging. So there's that disproportionate amount. Do you think we're doing 60% of the crime? Let me hear loud. Do you think we're doing 60% of the crime? So we all agree with that. So there's some wrong. We could talk about that offline too. But it turns out in California, not only are we disproportionately amount incarcerated, we didn't even have enough beds to incarcerate all the people. So Jerry Brown, through much lobbying, he didn't decide to do this. A lot of people fought for this, passed something called the Public Safety Realignment, where it was like a public safety issue to take people who were in prisons for nonviolent crimes, which are like selling certain things, if you know what I'm talking about. You know, someone wasn't murdered or killed. Nonviolent crimes, which are, that's another equity issue. But how can they be taken out of prison, put in jail, and then eventually let out into the community? Because these are folks who weren't a threat. They actually served their time. So we've had, over the last 6 or 7 years, hundreds and hundreds of people coming back into our communities. But that's a problem. Why? Because the system of reentry in California is broken. Is it broken here too, in Oregon? Yeah, and it's broken in Washington too. I'm sorry, I think I said Washington early. It's broken. Why is it broken? Just yell out stuff about the reentry that's broken. No support. Ain't no jobs. Well, a lot of them have education, but you don't have opportunities to actually get certified when you're inside. Sometimes you get just taught stuff, but it doesn't transfer. So yes, what else? Housing, stigma. Even if you've served your time, once you've been incarcerated, you're seen as somebody that you don't have any assets, you have nothing to bring. So all these people are like, oh, they're all coming back into our communities. What are we going to do? So a group of people that I work with actually said, no, actually, it's a solution. We get thousands of people coming back into our communities from an inequitable system that once you come out, and this is from firsthand experience, people are like, I don't want to go back in again. Even though because of all these issues they do go back in, most people are like, I don't want to go back in. So we thought, how do we welcome them home the same way we welcomed Mandela? Remember when Mandela came out? No, seriously. Everybody was singing and dancing, yay, Mandela, free. There was a celebration. It's a little bit different because he was like a president of a country. But real talk though, he was an African man released from prison. Again, a lot of these people, men and women, have done their time, whether they're innocent or not. What if we gave them what we call the Mandela welcome? You're an asset, you're back. If we are really talking about restoration and regeneration, we wanted to see, can we actually collaborate to restore and regenerate these relationships with this community? Can we actually have justice for the people that have been through the injustice system? And so we started a program that combined permaculture, which the video will share a little bit about what that is, and the reentry experience, and now I'd like to share that. Coming together today with the participants, the community, the staff, we are all equal. And so starting with that intention, again, I welcome you to the second cohort of Pathways to Resilience. So permaculture design is just a way to talk about observing nature and natural systems and learning from those natural systems to design our lives.
Well, permaculture, going up to Merritt College, dealing with the instructor, Timar, excellent information, and a lot of things that he taught us dealing with the earth and the growth process of it. You know, I took that and applied to the growth process with myself.
I've learned a lot about nature. I've learned a lot about planting. I've learned a lot about life itself.
Just like the plants grow around the earth, the weather comes, everything in its cycle, you know. And I'm trying to get back on that track of that cycle.
I want to do the farm thing, you know what I mean? You know, get everything going right. That's something that's in me on my other side of me, you know. I got one side and I got another side, you feel me? So that's my other side.
Really, it's just about growth and like really, you know what I mean, being able to just dissect the situations that you've been in and find that information.
The biggest highlight of this program is that I've learned a lot of permaculture. I learned a lot about eating healthy. Well, I'm a Samoan, so our culture is we eat a lot of unhealthy food. Growing your own foods is the best thing to do.
What surprised me the most is like I never thought I was going to take a shovel and start digging into the soil. Like, oh my God, am I really doing this? But it was like I really actually liked it. I didn't know that the dirt had like 3 different soils, like, you know, clay, rock, sand. It was really fascinating to me.
When we had a program like this, like giving formerly incarcerated people a permaculture design certificate while working out some of the trauma, while giving them tools in the social enterprise of how to use, you know, all of this stuff that's learning.
How can these resources be gained for folks that are formerly incarcerated that's coming out home, a community, before they get out to the real community?
I need someone, you know, to help me grow in my process. You know, I have grown up, you know, with this permaculture program. I met great people, great resources, and that's what men and women like myself, we need those type of resources. We need those type of people in our lives.
Well, I'll say the highlight has been the social enterprise class or piece of the Pathways to Resilience program. I'm starting my own business, so being able to have a head start on that and being able to use the tools that is being taught in that course.
My favorite part of the program was social enterprise. I got a lot out of it. Made me unleash my potential and it made me bring me out a little bit, to hear my voice. I learned a lot from here. You know, it opened a lot of doors for me. And now that I have my foot in the door, my other foot go find the rest of the round of the house.
Doing whatever it takes to get back on the right track. Since I was last incarcerated, came home, and I want to be about something positive, mingle and coexist with people who are positive. That's why this program is important to me.
I was able to be introduced to a whole lot of incredible people, and I was able to build networks also with those folks.
I'm just willing to learn and try something different to help better myself and be reintegrated back into society with a positive outlook.
If I was still incarcerated, there'd be no way I could be an intricate part of my family, to my community. I would be no help to anyone. And today, all that has changed because of Pathways to Resilience.
For what I am today, shame on my past, but shame on me if I remain that way.
I would like to see more women inmates come out and have a resource to
They can grab hold to.
Celebrate. For me personally, I like the way that they bring community together.
My journey from the beginning to now, it's really been a growing process for me.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot because this really helped me understand more about life.
This is the pathway to resilience. Maybe not today, but tomorrow. But we graduate on the weekend. And man, I am as excited as I was because I'm getting a certificate I can put in a frame.
What I think about this program is opportunity. You know, every time I think about it, you know, just the skills that I'm able to learn, you know what I mean? Thinking about who am I going to meet today, what am I going to be able to pick up from them.
Well, and I'm looking forward for the graduation, but mainly I'm looking forward to be the alumni part of it.
Celebrate, celebrate.
My name is Augustine Torres.
My name is Regent.
My name is Julie Walker.
My name is Linda Candelaria.
My name is Lawrence Walker.
My name is James.
My name is Wilmer Osmond III. I go by my Muslim name, Sadiq.
My name is Rachel.
My name is Minister Calvin Lawrence.
Hello, my name is Victor Blanco.
Hi, my name is Keisha Evans.
Well, my name is Philip Byers.
My name is Douglas. I'm Tyann Bowens, member of Pathways to Resilience.
Thank you. And so that was another project that was a collaboration. We were able to leverage the Merritt College, but also a social enterprise organization, a hub in Oakland, and environmental education organization. So again, collaborating around these issues because a lot of what we're dealing with was not created in silo and alone. Like I was talking about before, they're totally connected. And this moment, this time is calling for us. That's just some more of the aspects of the program, and I can talk later with anyone that wants to know. But this moment in time is calling for us to kind of call forth our magic. Ain't nobody coming to save us. We are the ones. Remember that from the beginning of my slide? See how I wove it back in? I'm serious. And so what is it that we bring? What are the assets we are connected to, whether it's we're in positions of staff at these universities, students, leaders, family members, whatever. Where do we start or continue? Because you're all doing this work. But how do we come together? How do we know that this is the time? We are the ones we've been waiting for. Stand up and take a stand for what we know needs to happen and do this work together. Inspire each other. I welcome you to spend the rest of this day asking other people, what are the assets you bring? What are you excited about? We know a lot about the problems, but what is happening and our legacies to changing and shifting? So I look forward to sharing more stories with you. I'll be here for a couple more hours today. And other than that, thank you and have a beautiful day. Thank you. Thank you.